Hey, it's Nate Savage here, and welcome to this video. We're going to take a look at a little comparison between the Fractal FM3 and the Line 6 HX Stomp. And this channel isn't primarily a gear review video or anything like that. This is just when I get a new piece of gear that I like, that I think is interesting, I like to do a video on it because I'm excited about it. And just a little bit of pre-warning, this video is going to have a lot of my opinions in it. And take those with a grain of salt and leave your opinions below in the comments to let everyone know what your opinions are on the difference between the Fractal FM3 and the HX Stomp. So the last few gear videos I've done have been things like the HX Stomp versus the Tonix, and the HX Stomp versus the Kemper player, and now versus the FM3. And you're probably seeing a trend. Everything is going up against the HX Stomp because I think this is really the one to beat as far as price point and ease of use. And I've been doing a lot of trading and buying and selling on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and that's how I get all these things, and I don't keep them. I just keep the winner and then move on to the next one. And by this point, I think I've tried everything on the market that I'm interested in except for the Quad Cortex, and I'm just not going to pay that kind of money for a direct guitar solution. But it really comes down to three things for me, and Tony isn't even the top two. The first thing is feel. How does it feel? The second thing is workflow. Does it fit my workflow for doing lessons for the Guitar Fam site and doing live gigs or whatever? And then the third thing is actually the tone. So I got a lot of playing examples here for you. We'll get into those here in just a minute. So let me just tell you how I capture these audio examples so you know what you're listening to. When I record instructional videos, I record a direct guitar signal right into my audio interface, and then I use something like Helix Native or any other number of plugins like Tonix, but most of the time it's Helix Native. And that's what you're hearing. You're hearing the direct guitar signal. I put it through Helix Native for the HX stuff, and then I reamped everything to the FM3 for the Fractal samples that you're going to hear. And what I did was I just pulled up an amp that was appropriate for the song, and because each unit has so many amp models, and it was really easy to get apples to apples, like a Fender Deluxe Reverb with 57 and a 121 on both amp modeling devices. So it was really apples and apples. Now I will say that the FM3 I did find to be brighter overall, but I didn't really tweak stuff that much. All I did was I pulled up the amp, the cabinet models, and the mics, and then I just tweaked the gain on the amps to be appropriate for the song. And then I may have tweaked the bass or the treble just a little bit because I want you to hear kind of the native interpretation of each device for that particular model. So that's it for what's going on with the tones here. Let me know which ones you like in the comments below. What do you think's better? Which one do you prefer? Here we go. What did you think? I'm just going to go through a list of pros and cons just to kind of help give my opinion out there and start a discussion here for people who are considering one or both of these units for their use. Let's start with the FM3 and do the pros. To me, the FM3 feels better than the Line 6 HX Stomp, and that's my biggest gripe with the HX Stomp, if you've watched the other videos in this kind of series, is the feel. Another thing that I really like about the FM3 is when you pull up an amp model and throw a cab on it, there's not a lot of tweaking that's required to get it to sound good or how I think I want it to sound. So it's very fast to get it sounding really good. Now, flowing directly from that is the FM3 is a lot more tweakable. There are just a ton of parameters, none of which I use. I just use the basic parameters, and that's good enough for me. But if you like really diving deep and tweaking your tone a lot, FM3 is really good for that. That can kind of be a con. We'll get into that in a little bit though. Another point that's really good about the FM3 compared to the Stomp is the amount of blocks you can load without running out of memory or CPU usage. You can just do a little bit more, not that I necessarily always need it, but it's nice if you need it and it's there. Next feature that's a really big pro, or you could look at it as a con, is there are a ton of amp models. I think there's like over 200 amp models in the FM3. Don't quote me on that. I'll put it up here on the screen how many there actually are. And there are just so many cab models that I don't even want to think about it. That can be really good if you need a lot of versatility, or it can be kind of a killer if you get option paralysis. Last big plus for me is XLR outs on the FM3. That just eliminates the need for any DIs or direct boxes like you might need or want to use if you're using the Stomp. All right, on to the pros of the HX Stomp. It is way more convenient and way more portable than the FM3. It's almost a quarter of the size of the FM3. So if you need to just chuck something in your gig bag, or if you have a fly gig and you're really limited on space, or you don't want something as big as FM3 taking up your entire pedal board, then the HX Stomp is kind of a no-brainer as far as that goes. As a matter of fact, that's probably the biggest con that we'll get into later for the FM3. All right, next one. The HX Stomp is very easy to learn and get into right away. It's very intuitive. If you've ever tweaked with any kind of digital amp modeling before, you might not even need to read the manual, or you could just spend 15 or 20 minutes with the manual and be up and running right away. So it's really easy to use. Next, do I need to even say it? It is quite a bit cheaper. So if money is an object for you, get the HX Stomp. All right, one of the heaviest pros for me because of my workflow with doing lessons and videos and things is that the HX Stomp has a companion software plugin, Helix Native, which means you don't even have to worry about reamping if you don't want to. Like on the FM3, you have to set it up and reamp things, which isn't bad. It's nice to be able to do that, but it's way more convenient to have Helix Native just as a plugin in your recording software and just change your amp whenever you want to. So that's a really big plus that Fractal is kind of missing out on, I think. All right, let's get into the cons of the FM3. The biggest one is the size. To me, the biggest one is the size of the unit. If you put it on your pedal board, I really like to use drive pedals, like individual drive pedals. And if I put this on my board, it takes up 2/3 of the board, and it's just big. But if that's all you have and you're lugging just around town, that's okay. But if I have a fly gig where I have to throw it in my backpack or something, I'm not going to want to be taking that. It's pretty big and it's pretty heavy as far as comparing it to the HX Stomp. All right, the second con, and this might not be a con for you, it depends on your personality and what you like. The FM3 is way more complicated. It took me a while to read through the manual. I think it's 150 pages, and it's a lot more complicated and thicker. That can be really good if you're really into tweaking parameters and dialing in your tones. But if you just want to pull up something and be able to tweak it on the fly without getting bogged down in the details too much, then you might want to go with the HX Stomp. If you don't mind reading and really dedicating some time to learning the FM3, it can be really rewarding if you're into that. Okay, the last con I could think of is it's just more expensive. I didn't say this in the beginning, but the only reason I have this is because the Kemper Profiler player that I bought just outright with my own money brand new, wasn't working with my workflow for working at home doing videos. So I put it up for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and somebody was like, hey, trade me for my FM3. And I was like, okay, sure, go ahead, do it. If it wouldn't have been for that, I might not have ever picked up an FM3 just because of the price. Okay, cons for the HX Stomp. This is the biggest one for me. If it wasn't for this, I wouldn't even be considering an FM3. It is the feel. There's something about the feel of the HX Stomp that I just do not like. But I'll show you something that has changed everything. This has thrown a wrench into the whole thing. And that's a Tone X1. You can stick this in the loop of an HX Stomp and it solves the the feel problem for me. So I really don't know, honestly, which one of these I'm going to keep in the long term. I may keep both, but generally speaking, I'm not going to keep, you know, $1,000 setup and then another $1,000 setup for doing the exact same thing. So we'll have to see which one wins out over the next several months here. Second con is limited blocks. You're just going to run out of CPU space on the HX Stomp before you do on the FM3. And if that might be a big deal for you, that might not be a big deal for you, depending on how many, like if you want to run dual amps, or if you're a really big ambient guy, you might want a lot of blocks and processing power for a lot of different reverbs and delays. The third con for me for the HX Stomp is just that it takes a lot more tweaking to get a tone that I'm satisfied with. And this may be tied to the feel thing for me, but when I pull up an amp and a cab on the HX Stomp, I feel like it takes me a lot longer to dial something in that I'm satisfied with than it does the FM3. The FM3, I just pull up an amp and a cab, maybe adjust the gain to you know, the appropriate level for the song, then just the bass and the treble a little bit, and I feel like I'm good to go. So those are my pros and cons for both units, and really it comes down to the three categories. I think for everyone it will be feel, maybe not in this order, but for me, feel, workflow, and then tone is last for me. Because I'll tell you right now, when I started making this video, or when I was preparing to make it, I was like, oh, the FM3 sounds better to me. It feels better. And then when I started listening back to the sound samples as I was editing, you know, the sound sample videos, I was like, neither of these sound better or worse to me. They really don't. So I couldn't have as strong of an opinion as I thought I was going to have in this section of the video, saying, oh, do this one or this one, or the FM3 sounds better. I don't think the FM3 sounds better. I think it just sounds a little bit different. I think it sounds just as good as the HX Stomp, but I do think the FM3 feels better. So I guess my personal recommendations for this one would be, if you really like tweaking stuff, endless parameters to customize your own sound, and you're maybe staying at home more, using the unit at home, you don't have to lug it around, you don't, size doesn't matter as much, then maybe go with the FM3. If you're the kind of person that doesn't want to be kind of option paralysis by all the different parameters, and you don't want to have to worry about the size of it, you just want to throw it in your gig bag and go to your gig, or maybe do a fly date with it, then maybe the HX Stomp is the better way to go. Now for me, generally I can't justify having two kind of rigs that do the same thing, like $1,000 HX Stomp and a Tonex pedal, and then an FM3. I'd probably rather just sell one and then get another guitar or something like that. The only thing that's keeps nagging at me is the size of the FM3, because like I said, I love having my drive pedals on the floor, and it takes up so much room on my pedal board. Plus, if I'm doing a fly gig with my wife Chelsea, then an FM3 is not something I'm going to throw in my suitcase or my backpack. I would just do the HX Stomp. So we'll see. I guess part of my decision will be how many opportunities we have to play fly gigs and things that are far out of town like that in the near future. We'll see. Okay, that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, go to guitarfan.com and sign up for your complimentary account. Everyone who has a Guitar Fan account gets one complimentary video lesson with me. We can iron out a plan for your future playing, and you know, identify any trouble spots that might be holding you back from playing the best you can. See ya.